I saw it was snowing and I was like, it's gonna be a good day.
Anyone's to claim in the air. Bicycle! Oh my golazo! The most incredible goal in CPL history levels this final. Rodriguez is down again. Carducci comes out, but Rodriguez chips him. David Rodriguez! What can't he do?
You may not have heard, but the 2025 CPL Final was a little cold and covered in snow. CPL Newsroom, presented by Volkswagen, to wrap up the 2025 Canadian Premier League season. Charlie O'Connor-Clarke, joined by Mitchell Tierney. Both of us were on the ground in Ottawa as Atletico Ottawa win the North Star Cup for the first time in club history in front of over 10,000 fans in Ottawa. Under the snow, under the lights. It took about 5 hours and extra time to do it, but David Rodriguez, as he has been all season, the hero for Ottawa as they win their first CPL championship. We have to go through this whole night, Mitch, and maybe just figure out what happened because there's so many things from this game that are easy to forget, but we will be remembering years and years to come. And to do it, we're bringing in a little bit of outside help. He's been desperate for an invite to this show for years now. He can't get enough, even though he's got way better things to do than joining us. But the man whose voice you've already heard a lot of over the last few days and weeks and months and years, if you've been watching the Canadian Premier League, the one and only Adam Jenkins is coming in to join us, and let's bring him into the show now. Adam, welcome to the CPL Newsroom for the first time in, I think, 3 years at least.
Borges' Olympico was the last invite for sure. So I know the bar that we as a league have to reach to get the invite. And by the way, as linguists, as the two of you consider yourselves, it was either shameless or unabashed begging to come onto the show. Either way, I'm grateful to be here.
Well, we're very happy to have you at this point. And maybe it does require a top drawer CPL final to get the one and only Adam Jenkins on a CPL Newsroom, which I think is fair. But Adam, we're going to come to you first because it's been a little under 48 hours since the start of that game, a little under 24 since the end of it. Really, it feels like. But now that we're all home and we've had enough chances to sit back and watch over as many of these highlights as we can, what is sticking with you so far, and what are you kind of remembering from that night in Ottawa?
Yeah, I think you can look at any of the clips that we've posted, and there have been multiple, and you think of the highlights in the individual moments. But I think, like, selfishly, this is a job that requires so much of you and so much of your team. And those are sort of the things that I always remember. Of course, the goals and the calls and the big moments. But from arriving at TD Place and playing a kickabout on the pitch with Jordan and Jimmy and Gareth in one of those little Derby Star mini balls, and just kind of being like, okay, well, I'm in dress shoes, but I get that it's slippery out here, and but the weather's not too bad. If it stays like this, like we'll be able to play some football today. To going through your warm-ups and speaking to who you need to speak to, and by the time you get set up in the booth and all of my papers are laid out on the desk, and then the snow starts coming in the windows, and then it keeps coming in the windows, and then suddenly our ISO monitors and CommBox are under 7 inches of snow. Those are the little details and nuances that I'll remember, like needing to blow my nose because it's so cold up there that I'm like digging through the snow to find the mute button on my CommBox to go like this. And the points in the second half where I couldn't see the screen beneath us because it's covered in snow, and then I'm like this out the window, like that's going to help, and it wasn't. And there are a few moments where we were literally flying blind. So I think it's the environment. Obviously, the conditions will be what gets the worldwide attention, along with the golazos that we've seen. But then I kind of think of the human side of the job, which is what I love the most, and that's the euphoria seeing Nate afterwards as the captain. And Manu, I joked with him when his baby Centauro was born, I said, you got to put him in the trophy if you win. And then being in the hallway when he and his wife plopped him in the trophy, and I was like, those are the things that stick out. And of course, the other side, the utter heartbreak from the captains and leadership team of Cavalry and Fraser, who I think allowed himself to shiver for the first time once he stood watching Atletico Ottawa lift the North Star Cup, having just been on the other side. It's those to me are the colorful moments and the human moments that really make what we do such a 360-degree picture where all the emotions are felt.
Yeah, it's pretty kind of special, at least to me, to see kind of how much the world has enjoyed watching, the highlights from this game. This is obviously a league that means a great deal to all of us who have been around it literally since the very beginning. And to see the world kind of cluing in. It doesn't usually look like this, guys. But
no, ride the momentum. It looks like this even in August.
When the World Cup is in Canada next summer, it won't look like that. Just for the record, don't worry. But for some of these characters, Adam, as you mentioned, these faces of the league, these people, as we've come to know them, obviously much more than just footballers, to get this kind of attention is truly special. And Mitch, we'll come to you here now, because we have not really mentioned his name yet, other than the start of the show.
We've talked about Jenkins plenty.
We have, but we'll talk about the, I guess, silver medalist in terms of the star of the show.
Oh, don't do that.
David Rodriguez scored a bicycle kick in the snow in a final. The first time, it's the first time he'd actually set foot in snow in his life. He saw it out the window in February when he was driving from the airport in Ottawa, but he did that in a final. Mitch, how special has it been not only to watch him this season, but to see a player like Rodriguez deliver that performance in a CPL final on the biggest stage?
Did no one tell David Rodriguez that it's supposed to be difficult to play in the snow? Because he didn't look like it inhibited him at all. Like, from his very first touch of the game throughout the entire match, he was playing the same way he has all season, cutting in, beating guys on the dribble. Obviously, the way he scored both of those goals is absolutely sensational. So, yeah, it was just, it's something he mentioned post game after the kind of disappointment of not picking up, one of the two trophies or awards he definitely would have coveted at awards night. He went out and showed everyone why maybe that was a mistake to not have him be either the player's player or player of the year, because that's a performance we're going to be talking about in this league for years to come, and probably a player that we're going to be talking about as, remember that time he was playing on the snow-covered pitches in Ottawa when he's doing it who knows where, because this guy has all of the talent. And it's something that I said before the game, like, the conditions are one thing, but talent and determination kind of win the day. And the way that he was able to adapt to the conditions and still deliver two magnificent goals, but could have been more. I mean, he chipped Carducci 3 times during this game, and within a minute,
90 seconds in one of them.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how I knew how close I was to Jenkins' booth. Was I just heard your voice immediately go up and looked up. I was like, oh, Rodriguez is almost already delivered a special moment. But this was just his day, really. It'd be remiss to not obviously mention that this was a team effort from Ottawa, but we all know who the star of the show was in that match.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, there was a lot that Ottawa had to do in terms of adjusting to the conditions, figuring out how much to add on or take off of your tackles, judging by how much you would slide in the snow. I thought it was a big night for Manny Aparicio, who was down to just run into guys in the snow. He went to ground when he had to. He was it cannot have been pleasant going up against him in midfield there. I'm looking at the stats sheet now, 23 final third entries for Manny Aparicio. But I mean, to be fair, it kind of doesn't feel right to look at the stats that much from this game.
I haven't looked at the stats yet. I couldn't. My laptop was underwater.
I'm literally doing it for the first time.
Which part of the snow was the final third?
Thank you. Who from Opta was sitting there being like, this imaginary, it's sus. If I'm a player, I'm going, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that for the most part, a lot of Opta's data collection is done remotely. So I don't even know how well you could see the ball or the lines on the pitch. I've got actually a document open on my other side that I've just titled "Things That Happened," and every time I remember a different moment of this day, in the CPL final. I'm writing it down.
It's Charlie's journal.
Like it's becoming quite unhinged. Like I'm only remembering the first 10 minutes of this game where Tommy Wheeldon Jr. sent the Cavalry subs into the locker rooms to stay warm. And Drew Becky from Atletico Ottawa was absolutely furious about it, which was just the beginning of kind of the lore of this game. Obviously, the referees eventually made Cavalry bring their subs back out, but they of course took their time with that. I've never seen substitutes run that slowly out of the tunnel.
Just to add to that, Charlie, like we've sort of made it well known that we don't get to do nearly as many matches in person as we'd like to, just with the way things are. But one of the things you forget is, especially when the windows are open and it's cold and sound travels so fast, like you could just about hear every conversation from the touchline up to the booth. And I think it was within 6 minutes when the subgates happened. I don't know which coach it was. It sounded to me like Mejia, but it was like, "You are a cheat." And I'm pretty sure I heard the Cavalry bench, and again, I'm not sure who it was, say, "If you're going to call me that, meet me in the parking lot." And this was like 7 minutes into the final. And I'm like, this is everything. And then it's the subplot of it's the spectacle and it's everything that happened. But then you're like, no, like there's a CONCACAF spot on the line here. There's so much more than just winning a football match, that if it was a semifinal, it doesn't have that intensity. Those are some of the things, maybe for your things that happen list, that like you truly don't process until it's like right there smacking you in the face. And that I think is maybe the most underrated subplot of this entire final, is that it meant so much to both of these teams. Cavalry finished the year without a trophy and aren't going to CONCACAF next year. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. I mean, I think there was a point in this game where both of the coaches and the benches, or people think that the coaches and the benches were starting to come to terms with the fact that it wasn't really going to be a football match like they expected, and it just whatever was going to happen was going to happen. But they both needed to win still, right?
Yes.
And it was all about finding a way to do that. And I think we're going to get into the actual kind of nuts and bolts of the game a little bit later when we have AGR on, who watched the game on TV and was able to, feel his toes and therefore could actually watch what was going on. But like it was incredible the way that Ottawa figured out, okay, we just need to play it forward. The ball's going to drop when it hits the snow in the second half. You're not going to get a clean touch on it, so you have to put it in the air. That's why you have to pick it out of the air with a bicycle kick, because that's the cleanest touch you can get on the ball in those conditions.
Charlie, can I just jump in to say, I think one of the smartest pieces of analysis from John Conway throughout the match, and something I admittedly didn't put two and two together because I know it's not a direct comparison, but I think there is a point where we have unlimited budget and I'm allowed to do all the silly documentaries I want to do. How similar is beach soccer to snow soccer? Because when you think about it, it's exactly it. The ball has to be in the air. The way you run, the way you plant. Sure, there are things like you're not typically playing in a sandstorm where the wind's blowing in your face. And to me, that's one of the hardest things about playing in the snow, is literally like not being able to look around like that. But in terms of the nuts and bolts and what makes someone a good beach soccer player, and the Beach Soccer World Cup is a thing. And sometimes we forget about that. But I imagine there's so many more parallels amongst the two, the snow and the sand, when you put the cold and the feeling away, than you would otherwise thought. And John, like within 5 minutes, was like, "Oh yeah, this reminds me of beach." And I was like, I don't know why I never clocked that. And I thought it was such a fascinating point on, if you watch like a beach soccer World Cup final compared to that, while it's different, there's also a lot of things where you're like, okay, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, interesting, kind of building off of that, is there's this thing called the Frostbite Cup, which is put on every year by these guys.
Forgot about the Frostbite Cup.
Very interestedly, that was played at TD Place a couple of years ago, under similar circumstances, and the idea is kind of the same thing. That like, obviously they play soccer on sand, in South America predominantly, but kind of throughout that region. But it's so similar to playing soccer on snow that's like kind of the Canadian version. It's so funny that like they did that as kind of this idea and concept a couple of years ago at TD Place Stadium, and then the actual Canadian Premier League final got played there, a couple of years later.
Mitch, isn't the Frostbite Cup trophy actually made of ice?
I believe so, yeah.
It's so good.
Surely in that sense, then it was made of ice. There's no way it's still...
Touché.
That's a funny point about beach soccer, though, because feel like two of Ottawa's best players in this game, other than Rodriguez, obviously, were Aparicio and Gabby Antonoro, who are both from South America, right?
100%.
Antonoro in
done
particular, he's Brazilian, right? Obviously grew up in Canada, but was born in Brazil and lived there till he was 12, and they love beach soccer in Brazil.
And we're up in the booth being like, has Mejia ever seen the snow? Has Rodriguez ever played in the snow? And the answer is no, but then you're like, oh, maybe it's really not that big of a deal. Learnings.
Yeah. I mean, I think once you get used to it, once you're out there and you're running around, you just, you're a professional footballer. You learn to adapt and you find a way to do it. And these guys are so familiar with a ball at their feet that, that's kind of all they're thinking about. I think for me, one of the most exciting moments was when we found, we knew for sure we were going to clear the pitch after the 90 minutes. And, we knew it was going to be about a 45-minute break. The snow was starting to stop at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And you just knew that it was going to be a different game
Yes.
when they came back out for extra time. And I'm really glad that they did, by the way. I know that there was some discussion at pitch level. Both teams were kind of thinking about going straight to penalties at 90 just to get out of there and finish the game. But neither team wanted to do that. And I think that was the right call in the end, because extra time was a lot of fun. For the record, Ottawa were all over Cavalry in that 30 minutes. The first half of extra time, they had a ton of chances. You just kind of felt like it was going that direction. And then it sounds like there was a bit of difference in the way that both teams approached the break, right? Cavalry were doing their best to get as warm as possible. I think a bunch of players were in the hot tub down in the locker rooms getting warm. Ottawa, meanwhile, their trainers are telling them not to get too warm, because if you completely warm up, you go back out there, you can cramp up a lot more, right? So they were trying to get them to kind of stay in. And Diego Mejia said he didn't really go in and talk to them at all in that 45.
He was in the hot tub by himself. He wasn't talking to anybody.
And fair enough. He didn't have to do any running around. He didn't have to do any of that. So he's very welcome to, but I think that it was the right call. But Mitch, let's just talk about this Atletico Ottawa team for a second here. Obviously it's been a long season and they've been incredible most of the way through, but for them to have this kind of iconic moment to cap off their year, we had Diego Mejia in the locker room screaming about the vindication he had for calling his team the best in CPL history. Mitch, what do you think the legacy of this Atletico Ottawa team is going to be? Because we're not going to see a similar team next year, I think.
No, I don't think we are. I mean, we already knew we weren't going to this game, this being Alberto Zapater's last ever game. And what an incredible way to end your career. Like, if you want to put a bookend on a professional career like that, there's almost no better way to do that. We knew Sam Salter was gone as well. But I think the legacy of this Atletico Ottawa team is just how much they stuck to their identity through the entire year. And it didn't matter, like the snow of the final, the heat of the summer, whatever, the grass of Halifax, like this team played the same way, or at least tried to play the same way the entire season. And at times, maybe it seemed naive when, they lost, they drew some games, or maybe they could have held on to win, or some different aspects throughout the season that maybe cost them the Canadian Championship final appearance or the CPL Shield. But at the end of the day, it won them a North Star Cup and had them playing in an attacking way that, we've never seen before in this Canadian Premier League. And it was incredibly fun to watch the entire year. And, that included the final, obviously.
There were, just to wrap us up here and then to let Adam get on his way before we bring in AGR to talk about tactics, whatever level of them that there were in this game. Adam, there's a lot of images from this game and moments and memories that are going to stick with us. We haven't mentioned Nathan Ingham on a shovel yet, by the way. That was truly incredible. But Adam, what do you think is going to stick with you most from the 2025 CPL final?
As an image?
Just in general, as a memory, as a moment, as a feeling, just when it's 2070 and you're thinking about being here.
So a few things. The self-indulgent ones first, saying this is why I voted David Rodriguez for Player of the Year, and this is why Manu Aparicio not being an MVP nomination was the biggest snub in Canadian Premier League history. So that moment of vindication, speaking of Diego Mejia and his feeling. the bicycle, of course. I don't think the moment I will remember, because I didn't know who scored, to be fully honest. I knew that David was up there, but there's like 5 players in that gaggle. The snow's picking up. I had a feeling there was probably only 1 or 2 players that could have pulled it off, so that narrows the list down pretty good. So that entire sequence, of course, and how it feels. But again, I'm a sucker for the emotion. I think it was before extra time started, and Camargo was the Cavalry delegation, and Ingham was there, and Nate comes over and like gives Serge a kiss on the forehead, and then it was almost like an immediate change in his face to, I will run through you if I have to win this trophy. And to me, that's sports in particular. It's John Conway and I making snowballs to clear off our desk and pinging them at the empty seats in front of us just to keep our bodies moving. And then it's looking down, and the way our booth is set up there, like we couldn't see across the field, and I was shocked at the amount of people that stayed. But you certainly can't see underneath into the seats. But I'm pretty sure the dub was up and dancing the entire time, and one of it was a survival mechanism, and the other was just to be there for their team like they have been. And to me, the most special moment, the trophy lift is always exciting with the pyro and the euphoria from the players, but I will always love the first time the captains bring the trophy over to the fans. And obviously Forge have done that with the battalion, and last year Cavalry did that with the foot soldiers, and seeing Section W in their parkas and toques and scarves. And when Nate and Zappa ran over with the trophy and hoisted it, there was this moment of like utter bliss, because even through Gareth Wheeler's best intentions at supporters night to rile up the Ottawa supporters, that there was never a moment
we
where
don't
they
talk
stopped
about
believing.
that.
There was never a moment where they stopped believing. And it's not just this is my team, ride or die type of vibes, but it was, we genuinely, there was some kind of like odd calm about them throughout everything that happened that was realized with the win. And I think those are a few of them that will stick with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Ottawa were out there with the fans in the cup for so long that at one point Nathan Ingham sprinted into the locker room because he was like, what's going on here? We need to get the beers out. So
yes.
So him and Drew Becky, I think, ran into the locker room and came out each with like 2 armfuls of Carlsbergs to hand out to the players because they wanted to get the party started, but they just did not want to leave the fans and the families and everybody that's been kind of supporting that team the whole way, who did earn their moment with the cup before the team went and celebrated on their own in the locker room.
If you ever want to know how late the party's going, and it goes late as it should, go on Instagram. If you're up as well, thawing or relishing and seeing when players post to their stories different clips. And I'm pretty sure I saw one at 6 a.m. and I was like, nope, you have not gone to bed yet, as is your right. So kudos to you.
That's not an early riser, that's for sure.
No, it's most certainly
Absolutely. But anyway, Adam, did you have a good time back on the newsroom?
Yeah, it was, I'd say it was worth the wait, but that would be a lie because the wait was far too long. But I will see you guys probably in 3 years when, let's see, FC Supra wins in the most unbelievable conditions and someone scores a goal from their own half or something. That seems to be what is required for me to get an invite. But I appreciate you both. And even though I'm not always a frequent contributor, I am a constant consumer. So kudos to you too.
Well, thank you very much. And Adam, obviously, has been the voice of the Canadian Premier League all year and 4 years. So you're certainly always in our ears as well.
That's why I don't get an invite, if anyone's wondering. That's
like we've heard enough from this guy.
and I totally appreciate and respect that feeling. Okay, boys.
Fair enough. But anyway, Adam, thanks so much. We'll catch up soon and enjoy a little bit of time off, hopefully. Other than Canada coming up, but you know.
That's right. I landed in Calgary, and I think I drove directly to Banff to grab a 6-pack of beer and my dog, and then I spent the rest of the evening in the hot tub. And if you need me, that's where you can find me.
Well deserved. Anyway, we'll say goodbye to Adam Jenkins from OneSoccer, and we'll bring in, also from OneSoccer, Alexandre Gangué-Ruzic, always a frequent contributor to this show. AGR, you were watching the 2025 CPL Final from home. What was that like, I guess, in the simplest possible way?
Yeah, definitely not the sort of football match you're accustomed to seeing. And yeah, I was definitely seeing the snow blow, the snow pile up. You can just imagine what obviously it was like on the ground and whatnot,
Mhm.
but definitely just seeing it from afar was kind of surreal, because that's the sort of thing you don't expect to see. So definitely you kind of knew already, no matter what was going to happen, it was going to be a special match. It's a final. Finals rarely ever disappoint, but to see that, I don't think that was even in my wildest dreams. So definitely one to remember.
Absolutely. I think we all will for a while. I want to get a little bit more into the story of Atletico Ottawa winning a CPL championship here. We're going to start with a press conference clip from Diego Mejia. We've run a lot of them on this show this year, to be fair. So it's only right that we do hear from him again at this point. This is how Diego Mejia opened his press conference after winning the North Star Cup.
You know, what is the most impressive thing for me? Doesn't exist a plan to play in the snow, guys. You know, we talk about that. We need to play with pride, with the heart, with the head. And then at the beginning of the match, that guys start to play even in the snow, in the same way that we play all the season. Guys, I think that it's fair to say now, no? But it's the best season ever for a team in CPL. The best season ever for a team in CPL. We was champions. We are champions. Only losing 2 matches in the league, and 3 matches in all the year. No one did that before, guys. So that guys choose me, you know. That guys choose me, and it's incredible the feeling that I have right now. But I am pretty happy for them.
Fair enough. I'll ask both of you this, but Mitch, will come to you first. We know what Diego thinks about this Atletico Ottawa team. What are you going to remember of them, and kind of how do you place them among the great teams in CPL history?
I think you'll always remember them for this game. I mean, throughout the year, they put together an incredible season. There was all kinds of goals, as we know, a CPL record amount of goals. Their home form was excellent. They were just so good throughout the season. But this is the game that I think really elevated them to the greats, because again, if they don't win this game, no matter of the circumstances, no matter what, it's the story of a team that almost got there, that were so good but couldn't deliver in the pressure moment and couldn't maybe adapt to those big situations. There's no bigger game to adapt to than a final played in 2 feet of snow in these circumstances, with all the delays and all the different things, and the fact that this team had the character to do that in the biggest moments, and to win their first championship in that way, with kind of the pressure on them going into this game. It really was like Cavalry, they still have those 3 finals and obviously winning last year to fall back on. There was nothing that we talked about, like no laurels to rest on for either team. There was really nothing to rest on for Ottawa this year. So I think it will be that fact that when the lights were the brightest, when the weather was the worst, this team was able to get it done, and that's just so impressive from again, a really young Ottawa side, a side that had a lot of new players and had a new coach, and just bought in such an incredible way to what he was preaching all year.
Absolutely. AGR, you've also been watching this team all year. They didn't necessarily do it in the final the same way they always have, but I think there were elements of the identity of this team in the way that they adapted to the snow. And that's what Diego Mejia said as well, is that they still tried to play the way that they want to play, with that, aggression and that kind of determination with the ball. What did you see from the way that they approached the final, and kind of how did they do it?
Yeah, well, that's been the story of Ottawa's season. Like from game 1, we have to remember, like, funnily enough, like their season starts in pretty torrid conditions at TD Place back in
Yeah, I was
April,
there.
that absolutely rainy monsoon game where, David Rodriguez is introduced to Canada. Funny enough, he starts the season and kind of bookends it at the end to, this game where you see back three, you see wing backs pushing up, you see this front three running all over the place, you see two midfielders just absolutely covering every inch possible to them, especially Manny Aparicio. It was wild to me that it's a snowy final. The conditions aren't there. Guys are just kicking it out of bounds. And yet there were moments where Noah Batney's there with the ball at his feet, trying to pass it to Loic Cloutier and Ronnie Mbomio beside him. There were moments where Gabby Antonoro and Kevin Dos Santos were essentially right up the pitch as wingers. You laugh because you're like, man, like this Diego Mejia couldn't have told his team any different in terms of how they play. Maybe there were little things like, okay, Noah and Ronnie and Loic, like, okay, if there's pressure, you guys are allowed to kick it out now. You don't have to go back to Ingham. You don't have to play an impossible pass into the middle. But there were still moments of when it allowed, they would just sit there and play like it was July. And I think it's so fascinating. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this team is remembered, because right now in the modern game, there's a very strong debate of style versus substance, and I think we're seeing it manifest at the highest level with coaches. What do you do with coaches who have one way and play it almost into the ground? And we've seen that to the extreme, but then we've also seen coaches at the other end who are flexible beyond reason, right? They're always chopping, they're always changing. And there's always just something, interesting about coaches that have their way and die with it, because there's just something almost beautiful about someone who's, loves their ideas so much that they're willing to sacrifice everything for it, especially in football. At the end of the day, this is a sport of fun, of entertainment, of joy, that Atletico Ottawa went out playing the most fun way possible. And I think the fact that it culminated with a bicycle kick in the final, a beautiful chip, them still trying to play their way, even in the snow. As Nate Ingham joked, they would have played the same way on the moon, in a pool, wherever it is, they would try to play the same way. There's just something romantic about it. And I think that's what's so interesting about this final, is it's just the way Ottawa won is almost become a bit of an anomaly in the modern game, because most coaches you would see a 5-4-1, pragmatic, adapt, take the life out of the game. And Diego Mejia and his side at every opportunity tried to go the opposite. They tried to bring joy, they tried to bring excitement, they tried to bring life. And to me, there's something beautiful about that.
Yeah, and they really, really, truly did that in every way all season. It's been a pleasure to watch this team. But this was almost a very different story, guys. I think it's easy to forget that in the last 10, 15 minutes of the 90, Cavalry came very, very close to winning this game on quite a few occasions. There were some real 9-1-1 defending in the Ottawa box. Nathan Ingham made some great saves. I think Cloutier cleared one completely off the line. Not that he could have seen where the goal line was, really. Mitch, I think we should spare a thought for Cavalry FC, because we haven't really mentioned them. Obviously, Ottawa are the story right now, but Mitch, it's not a hurdle that Cavalry are able to clear. But how impressed are you still with their season and the way that they got to this point, and really 107 minutes were very close to winning back-to-back cups?
Yeah, and obviously they had the lead as well, which we thought at that moment when Fraser Aird, kicks that penalty, that might be it, right? Like, we don't know how much worse the conditions are going to get. We don't know how this Ottawa team is going to adapt. So they got that first goal, and they'd held that all season, but not able to do that in the final. But yeah, I mean, I don't really think there's like in a traditional sense a loser from this game, just because both teams really just fought through the conditions, played football through the conditions, and that goes to show with Cavalry as well. This was a game of moments, as they always are, which is incredible considering what both teams had to deal with. And just the fight they showed to get to this final alone, I think you need to give incredible credit to Cavalry through a difficult season in terms of repeating. And Sergio Camargo spoke a little bit about that after the game, how all of a sudden every team, you get their best. There's something Forge has said for years, but Cavalry maybe finally got got more of a sense of that, of every team wants to be the defending champs, right? Like that's what everyone was gunning for the entire season. They had some real ups and downs. They had a lot of unexpected injuries and absences throughout the year with internationals, and it just never seemed like they had the starting 11 available to play throughout most of the year until the playoffs. And then they go into those big games and they deliver. And again, they gave an excellent account of themselves in the final and fought for the full 90 minutes. And, Camargo coming off the bench with, potentially a dodgy hamstring and playing fantastically immediately. Like that just exemplifies the fight of this Cavalry team. So they can certainly leave this season and this final with their heads held high. I know obviously missing out on CONCACAF is going to be a massive disappointment for that club, considering what they were able to do in the competition last year. But they're going to be right up there fighting for a CONCACAF spot again next year. I truly believe that. They've got the pillars of a outstanding team again. And Cavalry once again proving why they're one of the top clubs in this league and why they've been to 3 straight finals in 3 very different ways.
Absolutely. And it's, it is again another thing we forget, but credit to Sergio Camargo, who we didn't think was even going to be close to playing in this game. But he played a lot of it in the end. He came on in the 79th minute. So he ended up playing, about 40 minutes plus stoppage time in this game. That's a tough thing to do. We talked to him before the game and he was like, I will play at some point, but I don't know how much I've got in me. So credit to him for coming in, and again, credit to that Cavalry team for the fight that they had throughout the playoffs. But AGR, I will give you a final word here on the 2025 Canadian Premier League season, because it has been remarkable in every sense. We had, obviously Atletico Ottawa win their first North Star Cup. Forge go back-to-back with the CPL Shield. Most goals ever in a CPL season. Sam Salter, new record with 19 to win the Golden Boot. The first player ever to win Player of the Year, Players Player of the Year, and the Golden Boot, as well as the North Star Cup now. Ottawa obviously also, I'm pretty sure, set a new CPL record for the most under 21 minutes for a champion in a season. AGR, all that in mind, how are you going to remember this entire CPL season?
Yeah, it was just a year where everyone continued to push the bar higher, right? Like, I think that's what's great is when you look at all the pillars of the league and what it's meant to represent. Canadian, it was a great year for Canadians, first and foremost, young Canadians, development, all that. That's fantastic. Then there's the product on the field, which could argue it's, especially for those who like entertainment, like goals was better than ever. I mean, it was a record-breaking season for goals, so that was fantastic. You look at the teams themselves, the way they all pushed each other. I mean, the race for the playoffs was better than it's been ever, right? With all the race for the title, 2 historic seasons, and then 3, 4, 5 all season long. That was a tough battle, and even 6, 7, 8 made it interesting at segments. Like, it was just truly a season where across the board everyone pushed the bar higher, and I think that makes me excited for next year, because I think everyone around the league sitting there thinking like, man, what's next? Because sometimes that can be the tough thing, especially like it's not easy to be in an 8-team league. Like that's not an easy thing. You've seen so much of each other. There can be this feeling of stagnation, but no, everyone, there's standards, there's things to be set. So it just gets me so excited for what's possible, because all of a sudden there's a new team coming in and they've got big ambitions. There's a lot of other teams around the league who themselves will have big ambitions. This was definitely a big year of growth, and heading into a World Cup year where things just feel like they're going to be extra big because of everything. It's going to be viewed through that lens. Everything's going to feel a little bigger after this final, where I think people really realize, like, okay, what is the Canadian Premier League? What does it mean to be a Canadian soccer league and these players? I think it also just gives me like hope for next year and what that could look like.
Absolutely. It has been an incredible ride the whole way. Thanks to both of you for joining us every Monday or Tuesday, pretty much, to talk about this league every week. I think that we were all rewarded in the end with that show. But the full reward is to Atletico Ottawa, all of their players, their staff, their fans who stuck out a really, really, really tough night in the snow. Well deserved all around for all of them. Thank you all for watching all season. We will be back with you at some point shortly. We've got lots around the corner. We've got a U Sports draft coming up, a CONCACAF Champions Cup draw, a World Cup draw, and then preseason for 3 of our teams is going to start in January. So there's not that much rest for us, but we're going to try and get a little bit of it as we can. But anyway, this has been the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen in 2025. And we're going to leave you with the scenes of how this Canadian Premier League season ended, with Atlético Ottawa winning their first Canadian Premier League championship.
Atlético Ottawa, and a season of the utmost redemption, have gotten their second shot of the North Star Cup, and tonight they will hoist it at TD Place. A Canadian Premier League final we will never ever forget. Through the blizzard, it's Atleti who stand atop the mountain and are your Canadian Premier League champions.